Welcome to the MyTech Toolbelt podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Brenda. And this is a podcast where we highlight educators who innovate, engage, and inspire through the use of technology.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Shannon Tabaldo, co-host of the MyTech Toolbelt podcast. Today, we are so excited to have Brian Briggs, a fellow podcaster, with us here today. He is the Director of Innovation and Instructional Technology for Plumas Lake Elementary School District. Yay! Where's your soundboard sounds? Oh. Yeah, there we go. And Brian's going to talk to us today about podcasting with his students. So thanks for being here, Brian.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
I know, finally. We've been trying to get you on for probably
I know. It's odd that, the schedule's opening up more, being the distance learning, because I'm in front of a computer all day. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was joking that my schedule, being that we're supporting these teachers through these transitions, you're like me, like we're here all day, like we're on call all day. So there's not a lot of breaks. And so, we are sincerely appreciative that you're taking the time out of your evening to record this episode with us. So tell us a little bit about, what you do, and you can be even more specific because we are in the Safer at Home initiative here in the state of California. And so if you want to do like a pre-COVID situation and maybe a post, in the midst of COVID, kind of what that looks like, but share with us kind of where you're from and what you do.
So in general, my job, the Director of Innovation and Instructional Technology, it's a mouthful to say. It's basically, I'm the Director of IT and the Edtech on the same side of the house. So it's kind of the IT director and like an Edtech coach. So I support students, I support teachers. And again, like I tell people, one day I'll be teaching a lesson on coding, and then 10 minutes later, I'm installing an access point in that same room. So it's kind of both sides of the house, but my background again is I was a teacher. I started as a kindergarten teacher. That's what I love. I taught kindergarten for 8 years, and then transitioned into third, then some dabbled in fourth and fifth grade. I kind of had a limit. I was going to stop teaching when the students are taller than me. So third grade is when that was my sweet spot. We were about the same height. But then I became an Edtech coordinator for one of these super districts that's up here in Sacramento. When we first started, there was 5 of us. And by the end of the 5-year run, it was down to me where I was supposed to meet the needs of 30,000 students. So wow. Now I'm in a school district now, which is 3 schools. It's a rural school district. So we always say rural strong, meaning that everyone in the district wears multiple hats. And I'm always busy, which is good for me. And because idle time is not good on my hands. So that's what it is in a nutshell. And during the COVID, I'm still supporting teachers. It just kind of in a different, different light, different pivot. I do help desk. And again, in my district, there's just 2 of us. So I do help desk mainly for the community and for the students because they took computers home. So I set up a website that has like all the common errors that you might see on a Chromebook. And then if there's something they need to get a hold of me, there's a form. Parents, families, anyone in the community can reach out to me. And then teachers also respond to a separate email that I walk them through. I've gone on to the point where I got on a Zoom call with a grandfather because he was trying to set up Zoom for his grandson so he can make his 2nd grade class. So I was on the phone, I walked him through it. We ended up doing a Zoom call. So it's mainly that. And then recently trying to do my budget for the next school year for the technology. Yeah, it's crazy because you never know what to expect in the future because we don't know what's going to happen in these times. So I'm preparing. I was preparing for my budget that this is going to happen again. We will have to learn from home once again, I believe. So just kind of preparing with programs and stuff and put it in place. So when it does happen, we're all okay. We're ready to rock and roll. We got this. We're good.
Yeah, we heard that the state of California was probably one of the most unprepared states in the fact that we don't really have a lot of need to have an emergency learn from home plan because there's not a lot of spaces in California where we have to be closed for an extended amount of time unless you're in kind of some of the mountains or some of the areas where they actually might get snow and have snow days. But other than that, we're probably one of the best that we don't have tornadoes, we don't
Mhm.
have hurricanes, we don't have mass snowstorms. So we, especially in our area, in the Los Angeles kind of Southern California area, there was really like, we literally had to turn it on in 3 days.
Yeah.
Some people might have had a little bit of warning of like, we better start thinking about what that emergency plan might look like. And then it was
Yeah.
like, and we're doing it.
And we're going. And it's
And we go.
and up where I am, where my district is this is the third year in a row we had to shut down for some time.
You guys had fires up there, right?
We had the fires up in Oroville in Paradise. The year before that was the Oroville Dam broke. So we were in the flood. So we shut down for a week, but during those times was pretty much just stay at home. There wasn't much a learning plan in place. So we had the staying at home part down, but now we added the learning part onto it. So
there's a whole nother challenge.
Whole nother challenge we can add in there.
You guys, you and Ryan O'Donnell have a podcast as well that we love. One of our favorites. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we do the podcast called Check This Out. It's Ryan O'Donnell and myself, and we talk about some cool and new tools to check out, and that's where it came from. We started just sharing like different programs and apps that people should check out, and then we kind of pivoted maybe about 2 years ago. Not exactly sure when, but we started just going in depth on current trends or topics that are happening in education in general. And then we usually share a tool or two, and then we end on what we're listening to. So our next episode that we'll be recording is going to be, we sent out a survey about distance learning and like some questions we had for students. So we wanted the students' point of view, because online and social, we're hearing all these great things that teachers are doing, but we kind of wanted to hear what are the students feeling or saying. So we created a survey. We had over 300 people take it.
Wow.
And we went from TK to college. So I had my son take it, who's in college. My daughter's in high school, and they shared it without all their friends. And then I shared it within our district. So yeah, so it's got a wide gamut of responses. Not too much TK, but a lot of students. So there's some really cool findings. So we're going to go over that on our next show. So
that's a great idea.
Yeah,
can't wait to hear that one. So being fellow podcasters, I think that was kind of what intrigued us. Is not 2020, but 2019 Spring Q. Brenda attended your session on podcasting with your students. And so we've been trying to connect it's been a year now that we've been trying to connect just to kind of talk about that. And I think we want to look at it from two lenses. One is kind of what you're doing, what that looks like when you are able to be in a classroom situation, and what that looks like real time. And then what that might look like now, in a remote learning, or what could potentially be the future is of like some kind of hybrid learning scenario that we might be in for an unknown amount of time. So tell us how you got into podcasting with your students.
So again, I think if you talk to podcasters or fellow podcasters, they always have a second one, or they want to start a second one. And so my second one was, I want to do it with students. I want the student voice. I'm just going to be like the moderator and kind of get the conversation started. And a lot of times, like, I do have a podcast that's just for our community in our district. The idea behind it, the reason why I wanted to start it, kind of came from Joe Sanfilippo about who's telling the story of your schools. A couple, is it going to be the community? And a lot of times it could be hearsay. I wanted it to come straight from the babe's mouth. So I wanted to come straight for our students. So when we first started it, it was what they were learning. And then I just pose questions. A lot of times I would ask teachers, what are you learning this week? Or what's your emphasis this week? And would you care to have some students share it? It took a lot of iterations to go through, because sometimes at the beginning it was kind of open-ended. And what I learned is, you got to give more guided questions. But yeah, so it works. It's working well now. We've been kind of on hiatus the last couple of weeks because of what's happening. But with the students, what's really cool is I have the luxury, since I'm not their teacher, I can step in, I can pull groups out, like group work, and they can let down their guard a little bit because their teacher's not right sitting on top of them.
Mhm.
And I can have this candid conversation with them. But like some of the shows that we've done even with like second graders, we did storytime theater where they just read a story and characters from a book that they're reading that week. So it's very versatile and flexible for storytelling. But again, it's something that I wanted our community to know what's happening in our schools being told from our kids. So that's how it got started is, again, I wanted them to tell the story of what all the great things that are happening.
I love that idea. So bringing that authentic student voice to a podcast, basically like a school podcast.
Yeah.
What did you need to do to get started? What was the investment or the startup thoughts?
The startup. The one thing, again, because it's the technology's changed even since when we first started.
And that was how long ago?
With my students, it was just 2 years ago was the first one we did. And it's becoming more and more easy accessibility to do. And so it doesn't take much lifting to get it off the ground. But when the beginning was, we used iPad minis and voice recorder. And I just invested in a microphone that was a lightning cable. And it was to the point where I had students take it on their outdoor adventure week, where they go up to the mountains for a week. They took a couple iPads and the microphones and they were interviewing their camp counselors. And that was a point where I just let up. They had free reign because I wasn't there. They're there with their teachers, but they were interviewing everyone. Not everything gets picked, but some of the stories out of fifth graders, it could be interesting. But yeah, it was great that they were interviewing the counselors, and the counselors were having fun with it. They were all getting into it because there's that point where some people aren't shy or bashful when there's a microphone in front of them, where you kind of get a different reaction when you're filming with video. Like some people tend to be less open or candid about it. So there's something about audio which can, bring out some great stories and candid stories and that authentic voice. So at the beginning, we used iPad minis with voice recorder, and then they sent me the files and I edited them in GarageBand. And at the time when we first started, we used Audio Boom as our host. But I always agree, a teacher's favorite 4-letter F word is free. So when it started as Audio Boo, then it moved to Audio Boom, and then they started charging. And so then I had to try to find some alternatives. So for a while there, I was just uploading the audio files, even with Vukaru on Chromebooks. We were just saving the files in Google and having it in a Google folder, and just have it only open to people that have our district email. So making it a closed environment. So that's that's still tried and true that can be used today. But I kind of like the program called, it's onlinevoicerecorder.com is my favorite, which is online, and it's online-voice-recorder.com. They have a great suite of programs that are all web-based. So that's what we do recording now. And you can get a USB mic for the Chromebooks for like $20. It's much better than the built-in microphone. So yeah, so that's kind of like how we're doing stuff now with the recordings.
Yeah, the mics have really come a long way, haven't they? I mean, now even when we do interviews with anybody, it's like, do you have any earbuds at all?
Yeah.
Like, they're actually pretty darn good.
I'm surprised how well the earbuds work. It's better than the standard microphone, and it sometimes freaks me out sometimes when I see people talking and they just have those little white things and whoa, what?
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you as a parent, those things drive me nuts because no one can hear me in this house. Clean the kitty litter. What?
I have a pair that don't really hold the charge very well that I keep pretty much because they're original AirPods. But I've been doing just, quick videos on my iPhone, and I throw these in, and I don't have to hook up an external lav or anything like that. I'm close enough that these work really well. And sometimes I only have one in just to get the microphone piece working. And I've been really happy with them. And then I keep another pair back in the back of the house where I can, so I don't lose them. I got multiple pairs.
Oh yeah. That's the other thing that happens. They get lost too.
They get lost. Yeah.
And then what was it? The kids these days, they exchange one with someone else in the classroom, and then they can send text messages. Why go through all that? Just write on a piece of paper and hand it to them.
Right? Remember the old
school.
days? We used to just like flick a little folded piece of paper
the
over.
Paper,
Come on.
or do the yawn and kind of drop it behind you. Yeah, go analog. Use a Post-it note.
Because no teacher is going to see that coming now.
No,
right?
not at all. They're looking for the digital.
Yeah. They're trying to catch you using their super Big Brother software. They're not going to look for a piece of paper.
Exactly.
So I love the student voice in all of this. That concept to Brenda and I has been really something that we've talked about a lot is really hearing student voice. And we're hearing that a lot with a lot of our softwares like the Flipgrids and some of these ones that are trying to capture authentic student voice. And I think podcasts are a way that students can demonstrate learning or share their learning in a way that might be more authentic for them, their true authentic selves. So other than that, so you got some recordings, you got things set up. How often do your students record?
For a while there, we were doing it once a week because I set up, like you said, a Flipgrid, and on the Flipgrid had different categories that they can record to. So whatever the students wanted to record, like Fridays was Friday Funnies. If they had a joke they wanted to tell, they can put it on there. So to take one step back, what we're doing now is like my workflow now is, since I'm at the district office, the teachers have the Flipgrid. So they can assign their students the Flipgrid. A lot of times they hand them a Chromebook with the microphone, they record. So once they record, I get the heads up at the district office, so-and-so recorded. And so I'll download that video file and then extract the audio from it. This is where it gets a little bit geeky out there. I extract the audio from the video, and then I upload the audio to Anchor FM. So I use Anchor as my hosting and publishing. And so, again, those are two free programs, and Anchor will remain free based on what they said. My ideal, I would love to happen, is with Soundtrap. So, because Soundtrap's a lot like GarageBand, Soundtrap and Anchor are both owned by Spotify. If Anchor can bring in the audio editing piece into it, that would be a marriage made in heaven for podcasters.
Right, because it would have everything.
It would be everything in one spot. So basically, so what I'm using is, and a lot of times I don't do editing as much. I will, like if a student does record something, I'll ask them politely, hey, can you record this, re-record it? You said some great things, but can you elaborate on it? So there's not much of them saying, like that, because they are pretty good at that, because a lot of times it's them by themselves or with a friend. So it's that authentic voice between them. I think the scripted ones is you get the ones like on public speaking, which in turns with them practicing and podcasting, their public speaking has gotten better too through the process, because they're comfortable talking, just pretending they're in front of people. But
well, that's a huge standard, right? That's a huge English language arts standard. That's one of the 4 C's, like that presentation, being comfortable. I'm curious to see how that's going to transfer over in this kind of learning from home emergency situation, is these presentation skills, because I've seen our school where my son goes, they still want him to do a science presentation. He did a science fair project, which still we had to do, which is fine. But now it's the presentation of his science fair project to his class. And I was like, this is going to be interesting to see how comfortable they are in presenting their Google Slides to their peers using Zoom or, whatever they're using. I think they're using Zoom. And, I've heard the little, I don't really want to do that, just coming from my kiddo. So I'm curious to just kind of see how kids are we're going to see a whole generation of impact of what this learning from home is going to have on students learning where they're going to be learning and what they want to be learning and their paces that they want to be learning at. And so I'm curious about, these synchronous times, what kind of habits are those creating? And I think podcasting is a unique way of, they don't want to look at themselves, right? Most of us podcasters, we I always said I have a face for radio. Like
that's what I like to say too.
Right. So, I prefer to be kind of behind doing this work that we're doing instead of doing that. And I think there are some people who, even YouTubers nowadays, sometimes we don't even see them. We just hear them
and you see
they're
their hands.
screencasting. Yeah. Or you just see their hands. Yeah. We don't really see their faces. And so podcasting is really a thing that I don't think teachers really think about as being a way to assess authentic learning. But maybe you've instilled that in some of your teachers and some of your classes.
Yeah, I'm hoping. But again, it's a lot of times, like even my superintendent says we should give our students options. You give them the assignment, whatever they're comfortable doing or presenting in, let them do that. What I've seen a lot of times when you give a student some like video, like an iPad to record a video, and you tell their group to go in the other room where there's not very much supervision, their film that they're turning in comes back kind of jokey because they want to be that YouTuber. Right. It's not really that voice is like that stage voice. It's not their authentic, where the video takes that aspect out of it. What I would love to do and I think Ryan does it in his production class and at the high school level, but again, creating a show like a podcast and then bringing in like the sound effects. And so teaching the students like what you can use to make like leaves crackling, just paper, just kind of to add that emphasis on stories of their learning is with the sound effects or ambient sound. So
awesome. They become Foley artists.
Yeah.
That's so neat.
Yeah. So I think podcasting is a medium that it is becoming more accessible. I don't want to say easy because some things I may think is easy, others don't. So I think it's becoming more accessible and less of a load to take off on. But I think it can be a medium for, like you said, for presentations, because maybe, especially the teenage years, like junior high, where they're conscious about their looks. Does they spend more time doing like making themselves look better, where, you just need a microphone and you can your voice is going to be the star of the show. Right. And then you get the one, I hate how I sound. I hate how I sound. That's just, I do. It's it's the fact.
Yeah. It takes
we
a while
always do.
Over.
Yeah.
I don't even think I sound like myself.
No.
But, and I know I've heard this many, many times over, and we're used to it now. I think it's been 2 years that Brenda and I can be like, I can tolerate listening to myself now.
Yeah.
But you two have amazing podcast voices. And I hear that constantly with you two, Brenda and you, Brian.
Ryan says that he has a great podcasting voice also.
He does. Yeah. I would say Ryan's right up there. I think you three top it. Only because, and I listen to enough podcasts. You said podcasts are so accessible, right? For listeners. So not only are they a somewhat of an easy lift for us in education to kind of get things started. It's kind of low entry. If you can't figure it out, your students probably can if you just let them, onto Google and they'll figure it out. There's enough videos out there. What is amazing to me is that the audience that has access to, like, there's this whole generation of people that listen to podcasts, from kids to senior citizens, that maybe don't necessarily interact with YouTube or don't interact with other mediums, but they love their podcasts.
Yeah.
And when they find out that you have a podcast or that you've recorded on a podcast, that your kids are doing podcasts, grandmas and grandpas might be listening to your podcasts, right? And they just have access to hearing students potentially talking or sharing what's going on. I think that's just who your audience could be I think is really powerful.
And again, that was the other part with our community where I work at, is a lot of our families are military, because we're up by the Air Force Base. So maybe half of the families, they have someone stationed overseas. So again, this gives them, they can subscribe to the podcast and listen to it where they're stationed at the moment to see what's going on. So
how recording, awesome is that?
So recording like classroom presentations, or there's an assembly, we have that recorded, and like I had students go interview the people that were giving the assembly. So just to have that even to hear their own kids like, hey, my child's interviewing. So it's that kind of like gold star type thing. So you're right. The listeners can be anywhere and anyone, because with podcasting, there's something for everyone. Like Ryan and I say, it's like DVR for audio, because you can always pick that up. There's something out there. And I think what's different is, like on some of the big name podcasters, again, they're paid for it, but in the realm of ed tech and like what we do, is there's such a camaraderie. If you ever have a question, you can reach out to them. Like I became really close friends with someone because I started listening to him on his podcast when I first started. John Samuelson, who started with Techlandia. I reached out to him for some questions, and since then, like I've gone up to Portland and visited him. We go to conferences together. I mean, we're really close friends now, just for me reaching out and asking him a question through listening to his podcast. So
Wow.
yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, this world of like ed tech and educators and podcasting, it's that teacher by nature where they're willing to help out. So, and again, the friendships that come from it, because like what you mentioned before, you were talking to Brent Warner before coming on. He was one also I reached out to when first getting started, because he has a great voice too.
Yes, he does.
Podcast.
He does.
So,
He does. Absolutely.
when he was doing EdTech TV. So I reached out to him, and so yeah, and people are just willing to help out. So yeah, it's a great community. And again, teachers can get started just by listening, just searching for something that they're interested in and hearing that, and then just in the back of the mind planting the seed, like, hey, how can you apply this to your classroom? And so that's kind of like how I'm doing. And like I have science teachers that took off and did their own thing with podcasting. They saw what we were doing, and then so they're doing it with their own classes. They don't want me involved in all. So I'm all, okay. I get it. I know when I'm not wanted.
No, you worked yourself out of a job. That's exactly
right.
what every ed tech support person wants, right?
That's right.
I want to teach you to fish.
That's
I want
right.
to teach you to do that so that you don't call me anymore. And that
Exactly.
you move on to the next. So that I think that's fantastic. I think that's a sign of you hang your hat on that one for sure.
Yeah.
So thinking about, what does that look like? What does podcasting with your students look like? So you said this time around you're using like Flipgrid in this remote time, and then you're using Flipgrid though normally too, right? You're using kind of Flipgrid as the recording platform for your students now.
Yes. And so that's the Flipgrid is the recording. So I created the grid for them. And so I'm working with their teachers, and I just asked them, okay, I'm asking, our episode that's coming up we're just finishing our first year of our one-to-one initiative with Chromebooks at the middle school. So I kind of wanted to know, what do they think? Did they like having the ability to take them home every night and work from home, or do they like having them in carts in the classroom? They're ready available, but was it better taking them home? So I kind of wanted to get their opinion, and I also wanted to know, how can I improve it? As a district IT, how can I make things better for you for next year? And then the third question I want to know is, what's some advice that you can give our new students that are coming to the middle school? So hopefully that will go out to the community. So that's the Flipgrid. And so the teachers are sending it out via Google Classroom. So they're going to have the assignment. It's optional. They can take it if they want. And then when I get it back, I'll just get the videos, like I mentioned before, extract the audio, and then I'll piece them together in Anchor and put it up. But like I said, like the technology is changing. Soundtrap has the collaborative podcasting feature, and then WeVideo also has podcasting also. The one thing I do wish that Flipgrid would do was have the ability to just download the audio only.
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
And I even reached out to them. You know, they have the suggestion line. And so I sent them a suggestion, and they said they're not going to do it because they're a video platform. So I'm all, okay. And I even showed them how WeVideo is doing it, because WeVideo is a video platform.
Right. It's literally in their name.
Yeah. And then they simply have just a button down, audio only. And so that's, I don't know if I want to go down that path.
No.
Nah. Not yet.
True.
Yeah.
I can see the value out of at least having it on the admin side, right? On the the owner's side, because there are times when I want to share what's happened on my Flipgrid, but I don't have permission from the student and that kind of stuff, where just having their voice is a little less than having their video likeness. So
that you brought up a great point there is a fun activity that I do with the students also is that they get to come up with their stage name. So I don't want them to use their first and last voice. And we rarely mention what school. Sometimes it'll just slip out, but they get to create their pseudo name, which is, I mean, they love doing it. I say stay away from like Stormy or something like that. Just, it's another name that you would hear in real life, but that it's your pseudo. So it's a fun activity, and then they get to become that persona. So
right. Yeah.
That's cool.
Their DJ voice.
Their DJ voice.
Persona.
This is DJ Shadow.
That's so cool.
Besides, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Brenda.
I was just, we were talking about them creating podcasts, and I love that. And I think that it's so neat that you can have, especially older students, if you gave them an assignment to just create something on a topic that you are interested in, whatever it is, anime, the Lakers, whatever it is, and they could create several series, several episodes, and have it touch on, the history. And you can even get math or, can bring in different components. And I think what a neat way to actually hear something that they're truly interested in. And I think they would just, love to be able to talk about just the one thing, what Xbox game or what's the new game everybody's playing? The Animal
Crossing.
Oh, Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Everyone? You haven't played it yet?
Brenda,
I have it downloaded. I just haven't started yet.
We have it here at my house. The high schools are creating like virtual logos and things that are in the Animal Crossing game, and it's pretty crazy. It's pretty amazing the interactivity that schools are bringing to some of these live games, right?
Yeah, I rather Animal Crossing than Fortnite.
Yeah,
but again, that's
100%. I agree, 100%. I don't like the shooting games, but
yeah,
Animal Crossing seems pretty innocent.
But also another thing I wanted to ask was, can you give any examples or suggestions on the students that can listen to podcasts? Especially for the younger students, or do you have any recommendations for?
I do have someone on our website. Check this out website. I do on there. The one that I really do like that you could do it with elementary kids, but we still play it today. There's two games. We turn it into a game. One of them is called Pants on Fire. And so it's like two truths and one lie. And so you have to try to guess. The other one, probably the iconic podcast voice, is Mike Rowe. And we play a game in the car called from his podcast, The Way I Heard It, is he describes someone and it's the way he hears it. And like the story, historical. So the game we have in the car is you only have one guess to guess who he's trying to describe, because he usually reveals at the end of the episode. And the episodes are like 10 minutes. So like you have to listen to the clues that he's giving, and it's usually a historical person. And it's a lot of times for me, it's totally obscure. Like, really? Orville Redenbacher? And so, but you only, like in our car, you only have one guess. And once you guess, you can't say anything else for the whole show. And so, and that's kind of the game we play, listening to it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So The Way I Heard It is a good one.
Well, and I love that in your family and just at your school sites that you're encouraging the students to listen to podcasts, because there's something about not being in front of the screen, the video consumption of it, and just the thinking and letting your imagination, like to me, like being in a podcast, listening to podcasts is like I'm listening to my friends just kind of talk in the background, right? And I'm with you, and my mind is able to kind of wander and imagine and hear and be authentic. Whereas when I'm watching a video or a YouTube or something like that, my brain is engaged in a different way. So by showing kids that they can listen and listen for comprehension without having the visual clue is really, really powerful. And then I think I was talking with someone about I think it was actually Brent Warner when we were talking about, like, we also post our podcasts on YouTube, and there's a transcription of them, for good or bad. There's a YouTube transcription, and at least folks that are hearing impaired could still watch our podcasts and consume at that point as well. So that's kind of a podcast can be multifaceted for even students that can't hear well. Yeah, they can get the transcripts.
Yeah, and two things. One is Ryan has done it with his class, and we've talked about it in sessions, is he calls it the listening walkabout. So he'll find like a short podcast and pretty much kick everyone out of the classroom and go listen to it on your device. If kids don't have devices, he usually hooks his up to a Bluetooth speaker, and they just walk around the campus. And so when the episode's back, they come back to the classroom and they discuss that episode. So I know ListenWise is a great program because those are short NPR programs and they're topical. And now ListenWise, which I really like, is they have comprehension questions, and it's in the future, it's going to be Lexile to the learning level. So again, those short snippets, and like you're saying, that comprehension that you're listening, which is one of our skills, ELA skills, is listening for comprehension. That's another great program to do. But Ryan's walkabout, and then to go back about accessibility, for me, I have learning disabilities myself. So the ability to hear it is so much easier for me, because the video, and I'm trying to pay attention to something, my ADHD, I get distracted. And then you mentioned subtitles, like when my wife, we watch like a foreign film, and I have dyslexia. So seeing the words really sets my anxiety up, because like, oh no, I have to read it before it goes on to the next one. So with just the audio only, for me and my learning ability is great, because again, I can have that playing in while I'm taking notes or just doing it. And it's audio. These days, you can pretty much use any device to pick up on it. So it's accessible and accessibility.
Absolutely. I love it. I'm same. I like to have, I'm much more of an auditory processor. Okay. So question, when you're listening to podcasts, because I know you listen to other people, or audiobooks or whatever, what speed are you listening to it on?
I put it at 1.5.
Okay. 1.5.
So I have to have it 1.5. So like the one that I listen to is a really long one, and my commute is about an hour. So if I do 1.5, it gets me right at the time. So it works it. So 1.5. So, and it's funny because like a lot of people listen to us at 1.5.
I know.
When they meet us in person, they go, "Is everything okay?"
You're talking so slowly.
Yeah, is everything okay? Are you feeling all right? Because you're talking very slow. I'm like, no, you listen to us at 2.
I'm about a 1.5, depending on who the podcast is. I'm a 1.5 or a 1.75. I can very rarely go to 2, but I've gone to 2 before. But if they have any kind of an accent, forget it.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's 1.25, 1.5. Yeah.
There's some good Australian podcasts that I have to listen. That one there, I have to listen at 1, like real time. Or maybe even slow it down to pick up on it, because That
was some kind of I don't know what they just said. I just skipped over that whole part.
Right.
I'm with you.
Something on a Barbie? What?
Yeah, I don't know. Poor Barbie. What's she doing?
What's the wallaby doing? No, we love you, Australia.
Yes, we do. So, well, I feel like if our teachers want to get started, there's some low entry stuff. Tips for getting them started. They can do it pretty much on any device for free, no cost. Right. There's enough tools and resources out there.
So
publishing.
Like, do you put it on your website, or do you just put it up on Anchor? Is it?
For the district one, for our district one, we have it on Anchor, and then schools put it on one of their pages, so it's not readily available. I mean, you kind of have to seek out to it. So, but again, like I said, our community. A lot of them are stationed overseas. So the vice versa, the flip side of it is when the families that are overseas that are coming back to the States and they know they're going to be stationed near our district, it's almost an advertising for us, because it's a little snapshot of what's happening. And again, I don't want to say dirty secret, but it's all about kids in seats and ADA money, you're
Mhm.
competing with your neighboring district. So it's another form of advertising is the website. So sometimes like some of the good ones will put them up there.
Nice.
That's awesome. And so have you guys done any episodes on your podcast about podcasting with your students? You guys have, right? Yeah, you have
Yeah, we've done, actually, I think we've
few.
done quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
And the Bassett boys, Tosa's Talking Tech, they have a lot of great ones too
Yeah.
about that. They have one that's a series. It's like 4 episodes, which is, it gets down to the nitty gritty. So if people want to get started on there, I don't know the exact episodes, but yeah, they go really good in depth on it. So that's another great podcast to look out for too.
Yeah, we love those guys too. And I think what I'm really concerned about is right now teachers are away, teachers are at their homes, students are at their homes. So using something like a Flipgrid type of a mechanism to collect audio files, even if they just do an audio recording and upload it into a shared Google Drive, that's just an audio file, and have it the teacher just kind of publish it, or even if it's higher grade levels, the student can publish it and run it by the teacher for publishing.
The other thing, again, I've done it in presentations at conferences, is the other thing you can do is if you create a Google form and have it accept audio files. So on the phone or like the Chromebooks, you can tell them to record, save the file, and then submit it on this form. And then what's nice is when they submit the form in your personal Google Drive, there's a folder that keeps all the audio housed in it. And then you just set the limit of that folder to be like 10 gigs. And then it'll collect the the audio files. And you can set the parameters for audio file only. So that's another way to collect it, and remotely. Because I think, like you said, that's key in this day of age. What's something simple for the user end that they can record and submit? I'll do all the heavy lifting of the editing and putting it together. But again, Flipgrid makes it very simple. You just have to convert it, or the sound traps or the Wii videos or stuff on the online recording that way.
Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on time, so Brenda has a couple finale questions on you that we like to ask all of our folks.
Let's do it.
Check it out.
There you go.
Number one is, of course, if you have any books that you'd like to recommend that you have made an impact on you, either personally or professionally.
Okay, this is my dirty secret, is like I don't read.
And you don't listen to audiobooks?
I do sometimes, but not necessarily. Again, with my learning disabilities, it's really frustrating for me to read. So the one, though, this is going to be kind of nerdy. That's really influenced when I first started in the teaching credential program, even before my undergrad, it was Paulo Freire. Difficult read. I think because it was difficult, it forced me to read it much slower and look for details. So the Pedagogy of the Oppressed, that's the one that's kind of influenced me. And I guess like right now, it's like one of its anniversaries. So a lot of people are releasing it online.
It's crazy right now. That just came up in another meeting I had 3 hours ago, was that exact book about like everyone should read this book right now. And that's a great, it's a great book. I do think that every teacher should have to read that book.
Yeah.
Period.
And is it on Audible, or is it available?
Someone had to read it. Read it on Audible.
It's probably on Audible
I'll
somewhere.
do it. Let me read it. It's free. I'll put it out there on a podcast. But it's my Paulo Freire podcast. But no, like when I went to Cal State Stanislaus, where I call it Stanislair, a good friend of mine, his mom was a professor there of ESL. And so she's the one that said, you need to take this class because they pick it apart. So each week they went through a chapter and they picked it apart. And that was very meaningful to me. And the whole constructivist theory is kind of like what I'm side with. So that's what it really, really shaped how my teaching was.
That's awesome.
Or teaching is. I'm still teaching different.
Still teaching. But okay, so reading, check. What about podcasts that you listen to that are influential in the edtech space? I mean, other than us and yours, of course.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Tosas, the Tosas.
Tosa's Talking Tech.
Yeah,
I really like you said, Brent Warner. I really like the Diesel podcast recently, just because, again, that's my ESL background. my undergrad. And that's a realm that, it's not giving much love. Digital learning in English for second language. I see it very powerful. And so it's a great show. I'm trying to think, like, there's a bunch, like in the Edtech world, there's so many out there. So Ryan and I, we call him the Podfather. He does This Week in Tech, and with This Week in Tech, Leo Laporte.
I love him.
We've gone and seen him a couple times. We went on one of his episodes, and we were on his episode. You can hear us talking in the background. But
very cool.
yeah, he does a series of shows that does technology in general. But then again, my geeky IT back of my mind, he does one on security, which I kind of relate to. But again, a lot of times when I'm driving home, I just kind of wanted to step away for a moment. So I listen to other podcasts. Like one I really like is called The Rewatchables. It's about movies. And so it's like, it's trivial information about movies. So they talk about like what ifs, like people who were ever cast in there. So they may have colorful language, so it may not be kid friendly.
Appropriate for everyone.
Yeah. So
Good disclaimer.
disclaimer. But yeah, a lot of it is, and I do listen to like some sports ones. But yeah, like I said, there could be underwater basket weaving because there is something for everything.
Oh, absolutely.
For everyone.
Yeah.
Totally.
We did once. My son had a soccer tournament in San Diego, and it was a 10-hour drive because it was the weekend after Thanksgiving.
Oh my gosh!
So we listened to Serial from start to finish, which was great because I think Serial was like the gateway drug to podcasting.
Right.
And the two ladies came through town here in Davis at UC Davis, and they gave a lecture. So it was phenomenal. We got to go see them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's her! And like they played the Serial theme as they walked out. I'm like, oh, it's happening! So yeah, it was really cool.
That's amazing. That's great. One more, if you have time. One more quick question.
Yes.
Your tech fail. What's happened in your career where there was just a epic tech fail?
So this was kind of epic. For a while there, I was doing some consulting on the side for a company on professional development and working with teachers. And this was about 7 years ago, getting started with Google and the Google Drive. So it was their first session on Google Docs and Google Drive and how to share and how they could create. And the tech fail was that Google went down, not the school, nothing else. Actual Google went down.
Wow.
And for 2 hours it went down, and that's how long the training was. So there was a lot of sketching on the board. And this is how you would do it. And at the time, this was prior, Google Classroom wasn't even a thought then, but it's like we spent most of the time coming up with a naming convention, how they're going to create their file system. So spent a lot of times drawing that up. So yeah, of all things, Google had to fail. So,
wow.
Yeah, that was kind of.
I had a similar experience. I was presenting for a local Q affiliate meeting early on when Google Suite, the suite was just getting started. So there was Google Docs, Google Sheets, and I had prepped. It was a Saturday morning workshop up on like UCLA's campus. Friday night, I went through. I grabbed all my screen grabs. I had my presentation. I threw everything in, and I kid you not, Friday night they did an update, and everything looked different. So I'm doing a presentation, and everyone's like, "It doesn't look like that anymore." They introduced the waffle at that time.
Oh no.
And I was like, you have to be kidding me. Like it was the worst. I was like, they're never going to let me back into this Q affiliation.
I'd say that's the world that we work in. It's
right.
It's one thing one way. The next day it's going to be completely
different. Totally different. Well, Brian, thanks for your time today. We sincerely appreciate you and the work that you do, the contributions that you give to your teachers, and just the greater community through your podcasts and the work that you do in your outreach. So thank you for spending some time with us today, and we look forward to seeing you in person again at the next event.
One of these days. It was an honor being on the show. This was great. I loved it.
It was fun.
Here's my other sound effect that I love. I'm sorry. It's Ryan laughing.
He's laughing so hard he's probably crying. Huh?
Yeah, he was crying. Yeah. So, but yeah, good stuff.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
and we will
if
be in
people want to
touch.
get a hold
Oh
of you,
yeah,
If they want to get a hold of me, they can send me a message on Twitter. I usually use Twitter as my universal email. I am BRIGGS, Bri Briggs on Twitter, or my email is bbriggs@plusd.org. No, I don't have a personal email. My work email is everything. So
that's
if
it.
someone writes me there, it might be a joy in seeing that instead of all the spam that I get or the help tickets I've been getting lately.
Yeah, those will go away soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian, so much.
Not a problem. Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Bye, Brian. And we're
We're
out.
out.
Check this out.
Check this out.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the MyTech Toolbelt podcast. If you have enjoyed listening, please rate us on Apple Podcasts or send us some feedback on our website, mytechtoolbelt.com. We would love to hear from you. This will help us deliver the content that you want to hear. Thanks, and we're out.